You are currently in the process of watching a show with Zay Frank.
I'm sick and I'm gonna be a giant baby about it. The Olympics are obviously over unless everything we saw is still part of Danny Boyle's opening ceremony, which given how long it was, is a possibility. But one thing has stuck with me and it's gnawing on my shuttlecock, namely the badminton scandal. And you'll notice that I'm pronouncing it in the American fashion without an N, but we are talking about the same sport. Although yes, part of me would like to see an Olympic event where the goal is to wear the worst mittens. The Dutch obviously causing a stir this year, Janssen Vanderberg entering the stadium with both of his hands in an elephant's ass. If you missed what happened in the scandal, what happened was that 4 teams were ejected from the Olympics for intentionally trying to lose. The reason that those teams were intentionally trying to lose was due to the way that the tournament was structure methoded. The first round of play was not an elimination round, but rather a round that determined who would play who in the next round. I'm sick and I'm being a baby about it. Some teams realized, the clever teams, that by losing they would get favorable pairings in the next round, which would give them a better chance of winning medals for their country. That resulted in some of the best badminton players in the world flubbing serves and missing shots, and a very pissed off crowd, many of whom wanted their money back. Because you know why? I'll tell you why, because when badminton's played well, it's actually kind of fun to watch. There's this organization called the Badminton World Federation, which is pretty low down on the list of superheroes I'd call in a crisis, but nevertheless they call the shots in this sort of thing. And they're for reals. They have a logo. Yep, it's a shuttlecock. And they even have a youth outreach program, which is thankfully called Shuttle Time instead of Shuttle. We're both thinking it. Listen, so the BWF stepped in and they accused 4 teams, 2 from China, 1 from Indonesia, and 1 from South Korea for violating sections 4. Blah 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 in the players' code of conduct. Namely, quote, not using one's best effort to win a match, unquote, and quote, conducting oneself in a manner that is clearly abusive or detrimental to the sport, unquote, period. Yeah, the period should probably have come before the quote, but I'm sick and I'm being a baby. As a result, all 4 teams were expelled from the Olympics. All of this caused a bit of a stir, or brouhaha. Some people immediately agreed that their expulsion was justified. But some people said that the refs were out of order. In fact, the whole system's out of order. They said that the players were using their best efforts. They saw a strategy that would help them win in the long run, and they took it. Other people pointed out that in these same Olympics, the women's soccer coach for Japan had told his players not to score any more goals after a tie because that would help their seeding in the next round. Kind of the same scenario. And they didn't get kicked out. And swimmers regularly underperform in their earlier heats to save their strength for the finals. And how was this detrimental to the sport exactly? Who suffered? The fans? The reputation of the sport of badminton? And does it matter that they intended to win eventually, even in losing? And this stuff goes back a long ways. One of my favorite stories is from the 1924 Olympics involving the famous Italian fencer Oreste Politi. 3 of his teammates were accused of intentionally losing to him in order to boost his score, but it was Politi himself that got kicked out because he physically threatened the accusing judge. And then you know what happened? He challenged the judge to a duel, and they fought with real swords. After about an hour of hacking each other into a bloody mess, they shook hands and called it a draw. Now, I'm not suggesting that the ejected players should play the judges in a game of badminton with a flaming shuttlecock or a live grenade, even though that would be awesome. But all of this does make me think about my gut reactions, and specifically how little I think about the gut reactions that I have. A good view into the sort of thinking that I don't normally do can be found on Oxford University's Practical Ethics blog in an article entitled Philosophy and the Badminton Scandal. And then of course in the scathing rebuttal, The Philosophy of Bad Badminton, Another Look. Intellectually fencing with their shuttlecocks. But how about you? Are there any small or big cheats that you've done or do that you feel justified for? Are they even cheats? Maybe copying a lab report in a class that assigns too much homework? Merging right before an exit and skipping the line because you're in a hurry? Cutting itsy bitsy corners on your tax return because you're short on cash? When you do these things, do you do them based on a grounded belief that it's okay, or are you letting your grinning little devil take over? Tell me everything. I'm sick.
Bye-bye.